Now for business updates across the globe, Rotus Udiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Yeah, we start with the entertainment industry. There's breaking news early this morning. The Screenwriters Guild reached a tentative deal with the AMPTP. That's the Alliance of Motion Picture and TV Producers that represent the big studios, Netflix, Sony, Universal, and so on and so forth. So they've been on strike. The Writers Guild, and this is very important to dimension this. The Writers Guild of America has been on strike for 146 days since May the 2nd. The union represents over 11,000 writers. They are responsible for scripts for television and movies. And they've essentially been on strike because they're worried about artificial intelligence and what it means for how their likeness and their work can be reproduced without them being compensated. They want higher wages and so on and so forth. So they've been going back and forth on this. They announced it in the early hours of this morning, about 3 a.m. our time, that they had reached a tentative deal. The union still has to vote on the deal and in order to ratify it going forward. Now, the important thing to note, okay, yeah, this is Gavin Newsom. I keep wanting to say Gavin Newsom Wiki every time I see his name, but anyway, he says writers went on strike over existential threats to their careers and livelihoods, expressing real concerns over the stress and anxiety workers are feeling. I'm grateful that the two sides have come together. Then Karen Bass, who is the mayor of Los Angeles that depends heavily on the entertainment industry, says now we must focus on getting the entertainment industry and all the small businesses that depend on it back on their feet stronger than ever before. So that takes me, of course, to our own domestic issues with our own unions here and the indefinite strike that is set to take place. Is it midnight tonight? Look, I just want to again reiterate that the reason why we are here is because of past decisions that have been made that have affected Nigeria's fiscal structure. The demands that are being made, some of them are unrealistic because there simply is no money. I know the government is afraid to say this and tell them, but that is what the situation is. When you have essentially have your debt at 87 trillion, when you have not been able to meet up to a number of obligations, you essentially can't meet up to a lot of these demands. So, if the strike goes forward, it goes forward. But it really has to be said, that when you make your bed and you lie in it, and the last 8 years are why we are here today, and that's why, a lot of these demands are just probably not going to be met. We're to outer space. Listen to this. Let's listen to this for 2 seconds.
The asteroid Bennu is a time capsule containing pristine material that's been untouched for 4.5 billion years. It left the asteroid belt millions of years ago and drifted toward the sun.
Asteroid Bennu is interesting because it's one of the blackest objects in the solar system. So we think it's covered with carbon material, organics, the building blocks of life.
It may give clues as to what triggered life on our planet.
All right, Osiris-Rex. This again breaking, I think it was early Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. So essentially NASA spent $1 billion on this spacecraft that essentially was supposed to track, okay, so again, there were also definitions. National Aeronautics and Space Administration, independent agency. Osiris-Rex is origins, spectral interpretation, resource identification, security, regolith. So those are essentially just some acronyms there. So what they did was that capsule you're looking at is what landed in Utah yesterday. And essentially that capsule is supposed to be part of a collection of materials that the spacecraft, the Osiris-Rex, picked up from the Bennu asteroid. The Bennu asteroid is, part of what was floating around this early solar system before it was even formed. So curiosity leads to discovery. Discovery leads to knowledge. They're going to be studying essentially the samples, all right, essentially. So it reached asteroid Bennu in 2018. This is a 7-year mission. 2016 is when it launched. It tracked and actually collected rock samples in 2020 from the Bennu asteroid. And then they're going to now study those clues. Basically, not to get too much into the weeds, but if you think about proteins that were delivered to planets, so in early formation, during a process called accretion, where the gravitational pull of the sun puts clumps of dirt together and forms planets with gas, ribonucleic acids, and things like that, they're essentially going to be looking at how that essentially led to what we know as early life. So it's incredible stuff and a real big breakthrough for NASA. They'll be, updating folks going forward. On another point, there was a Twitter space with Ajayi Oluwatobi, the CEO of Nord Automobiles Limited. They were talking about there's some really, really great conversations that are going on these social media spaces. So it was great to hear from the CEO. Listen to what he said about the business climate under the past administration.
The Nigerian automotive industry had a big problem with the last administration. We had a big problem. We complained to everybody and anybody in that administration, to the VP, to the Minister of Trade and Investment, to the Minister of Finance. But now we have a new administration. I would not want to, I would just let us hope that things are going to be different. I've spoken to a couple of them and they promised us that things will be different because, like I said earlier, some of the things that we went through were just unnecessary. It just should not happen. You need a license. You need the automotive license to assemble vehicles in Nigeria. Which you all know that you cannot just wake up in the morning and go and start assembling vehicles, right? You need to get a license. And that license, for reasons best known to them, which I understand is only valid for 1 year. Which is, okay, fine. But the problem is that as at the last time, the new administration is there. We're hoping things are different. As at last time, it took people between 4 months to 8 months to renew their license. So basically, it's like you have a bank. You need a banking license from the central bank. And when you're banking, and you have to renew it every year. And when you apply for renewal, which should take only 2 weeks, according to the meetings they've had with us and the rest, it takes about 4 to 8 months, which means you are technically out of business between 4 to 8 months for that year. It happened numerous times last time. My license is currently active. It's not going to expire until some time. Hopefully, when it expires, we won't see the same problem with the new government. We're hoping that. So those are some of the problems we have. Why is the delay? No reason. The file just sits on somebody's table for weeks. That's the reason. They say you want to come to the factory to do inspection. Some people will not just leave their table to come for the inspection for 2 or 3 months. Why? Nothing. They're just there. That's it. Nothing. No reason. And if you don't have the license, you cannot legally assemble, and you cannot also legally import. So you are just stuck.
All right, now we're talking about, those are automobiles. Let's talk about roads. I filmed this yesterday. This is the road off Ozumba, by the way, in Victoria Island. It's been bad, right? But now it's a point where cars are driving on the pavements where pedestrians are supposed to be walking in order to avoid the potholes where that ExxonMobil is. A lot of people have said, so a lot of people say, well, why doesn't ExxonMobil fix the road? Why should they? I mean, they're an oil and gas company. I know that there are tax incentives that are given to companies to fix roads, but private companies should not be fixing roads. So that's where we are. Rainy season just, it revealed all this. Finally, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, we're in the last week of the third quarter. We're about to go into the fourth quarter of the year. Stocks, again, I tell everybody, please invest in the NGX, invest in the stock market. They've done pretty well as far as the performance review of stocks. You can see there, all share index, 31% year-to-date gain. The NGX 30 up 34.53%. Banking, 65%. Consumer goods, despite high inflation, 89.2%. Industrials, 14.2%. Insurance, 57%. Look at oil and gas. Because of fuel subsidies and the downstream sector, downstream oil and gas stocks are up 100% year to date. So do diversify your portfolios and do invest in Nigeria. That's all we got.
Rotus, I want to talk about Toby because I know Toby so well. And in fact, I've done a lot
of... The Nord CEO.
The Nord CEO, yeah. And I've done a lot of extensive work, even in my own personal capacity, publicizing, because I believe in proudly made in Nigerian products and goods. And I do it. If you check my Twitter timeline, I do for every car. What is it called? No, I don't drive a Nord car because I don't have a need to buy a car now. Gotcha. But if I have a need to buy a new car, definitely I'll get a Nigerian car.
But they're expensive, right?
Yeah. No, they're relative in prices compared to your other Japanese brands and the like.
We need a second-hand market.
So that will develop when a lot of people buy more on all of that. So concerning him, in fact, his story is even deeper and more dire than what he said there through private conversations, which is just a reflection of the warped system we have. A lot of corruption in the mix. People that are supposed to be supporting small business owners are the ones trying to fleece them up in a corrupt way, take from them. They think people like Toby and other car makers are making a lot of money. How many cars do they sell in a year in Nigeria? They don't sell much. But you see these authorities, government bureaucracy and red tape still wants to fleece them up. And in the end, they don't want them to talk. The reason why Toby can probably talk about the last administration, because the administration is no longer there. He dares not talk about them while they were still there. You know, when you talk about his administration, he said, oh, we've been talking to them and all of that. There's still a lot he will need to say, but he will not be able to say, but what we'll just call on government to do is, they should put their money where their mouth is. Nigerian car making companies, how can you support them? Look at Spain. The government of Spain supported SEAT for a whole while, before SEAT, went off the government. In most of these countries, you see government putting, the popular Embraer airplane maker today was largely supported also by the government of Brazil initially. So what are we going to do for our own car makers? And you were talking about asteroids, Rutus. Yeah, I was laughing when you were talking about it because in a country where we can't pay minimum wage, in a country where people are doing 001, you think we can aspire to asteroids? You see, you said you spent. No, I know. Okay. They spent 1 billion on that asteroid. Yeah. Maybe if you inject that 1 billion in our forex market, we'll see the.
Mr. Festus Keyamo is the Minister of Aeronautics, Space, or whatever.
Oh, so you want him to
maybe he can do
that one. Okay.
Okay. Before you intervene, let's take this breaking news. There is breaking news now. A section of the Supreme Court building complex is said to be on fire at the 3-arm zone, Abuja, with offices of 3 justices allegedly burnt down. We will bring you more updates as the story continues to unfold. Well, an attack on the Supreme Court premises, on the offices of 3 Supreme Court justices.
Security in
looks
Nigeria.
Like a very scary signal.
You were just talking about the school, the girls,
particularly
right?
About the integrity of the judiciary.
Right.
At a time when there's so much politics in the air, we've moved from all eyes on the judiciary now to attack on the Supreme Court complex. The same Supreme Court that is about to sit over appeals on the petitions following the decision of the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. I think this must be investigated because it sends absolutely bad signals.
But do we know the cause of the fire? Is it arson, or they're saying it was an accident?
We don't know.
Okay.
The breaking news says an attack, so it must be investigated.
Right.
But even on the surface of it, it's disturbing.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is.
You were going to say something.
I mean, this is news enough to shake and just. Obviously, as Dr. Abati had mentioned, it's an attack on the integrity of our justice system, and it's very serious, and it must be investigated. Hopefully, the fire agencies can contain the fire, and at least it wouldn't have further damage to already 3 offices set to have been destroyed.
Did they have CCTVs in there?
They should have.
I mean, they should, right? If you have CCTVs, you can just go
this
back
is Nigeria.
to where
Let's not. Let's just hope. Let's hope.
Yeah, you should. Right. I mean, they should. Hopefully, they do. Yeah.
2 things I want to talk about. First one is about the past administration being responsible for where we are today, and the fact that they might not be able to. So the question then.
Are you talking about the strike?
Yeah, the strike.
Okay, labor strike. All right.
So what's the way forward? Because if we absolve, what we said consistently during campaign was that they know what they're about to come into. They ought to have a plan for it, and we will not hear excuses that, as we've had in the past, that it was the past administration. They knew. Where did they have plans based on this, or when they got in, it overwhelmed them, and all of a sudden, then if that was the case, why did they announce fuel subsidy removal if they were not ready for it because of what the past administration? Shouldn't they have waited to clean up the mess, in quotes, of the past administration under the same APC before embarking on this project to impoverish Nigerians? Is it fair for the Nigerian people to pay the price of the past administration, or should this administration be defending its people? So that's one. Then the second part is when you sent, I was like, this is close to my heart. The state of infrastructure especially because for this administration, that's in Lagos State, the themes agenda, the first letter T is transportation and traffic management. Traffic in Lagos has been horrendous in the past few days. And a quick win, just fix the roads. This is on the island. All the parts of Lagos, there are gullies. You cannot imagine the cost on individuals in terms of having to fix your cars, accidents. We have to come to a point in this nation where not just in Lagos, but across the country, governments can be sued for negligence when accidents happen because lives are at stake. We'll then mourn, we'll pay visitations, solidarity visits to these people. But have you seen people, it's like fast and furious. You're trying to avoid one pothole or a gully because they're beyond potholes now. So what is the government doing? What is the government doing in the commercial capital of Nigeria?
Well, the government is talking about blue rail line, red rail line. So and I was telling someone yesterday that, yes, what the Lagos State government wants to do is a multimodal, transportation system to ease the pressure on the roads. But the starting point will seem to be the roads. And they seem to have taken their eyes off the ball. And the standard excuse is that, you have to wait for the rains to end before you fix the roads. Okay, after the rains end, then they do some patchwork, some, incompetent patchwork. And then the next rainy season comes, everything is washed off, and then another contract is awarded again. Look, that's not the situation in other parts of the world. Roads are properly maintained. And even in privileged sections of Lagos, this is Victoria Island, right? You go to Lekki, there is one section of that Lekki roundabout where there is a big pothole.
They call it boreholes now. Somebody on Twitter call it borehole.
Okay, they now call it borehole.
Somebody on Twitter call it a borehole.
If this is the situation, if you now have boreholes on the roads in Lagos Island and Lekki, right. Imagine what the people of Agege and Ikeja are facing. And yet these same government officials go about on these same routes and they do absolutely nothing. Right. And the same story in Lagos you can replicate across different parts of the country, especially in the south. Now, that's that about that. I was going to draw your attention to the fact that Russia seems to be unaffected by the cap on, exports, oil exports, by the G7 countries. In fact, this year, despite that price cap, Russia is going to make profits, higher revenues in excess of $15 billion. And now what Russia has now done is to, in fact, order an immediate stoppage of exports of, diesel and gasoline in particular, further putting pressure on the market, and it's Russia who is going to gain. The only exception are four, former Soviet countries that are members of the same union, regional union with Russia. So the point about this is, when we raise the question, do sanctions work?
Yeah, right.
This is one example in which Russia has been able to defy the G7 countries. The other issue is the situation in the US. The Republicans have decided to go on a recess, and yet there is this controversy over budget, right?
Shut down.
If that budget is not passed before midnight on October 1, then of course there will be government shutdown. If there's a government shutdown in the United States, you can be very sure that there will be effects, beyond the United States. Final question. I wanted to ask you about this thing they call September slump.
Yes.
Right? All the stock futures have gone down. Bond yields may have gone up. But NASDAQ composite, S&P 500, they've all consistently been dipping, downwards in the last 2 months. So what's responsible for this September slump, which seems to be something that investors and the markets look forward to?
Yeah, it's been central banks. Basically, the Bank of England, they held, but indicating that rates could still go up. And also the Federal Reserve also saying that rates could be hiked as well. And the ECB has consistently said that they will continue to maintain rate hikes. So that has a negative impact on stocks. But buy the dip, doctor. Buy the dip and invest and spread your portfolio out with respect to overseas and also here in Nigeria. That's what we've been seeing.
Okay, so Rotus, before you go again, we'll repeat the breaking news. We'll bring you the breaking news again. A section of the Supreme Court building complex is said to be on fire at the 3 Arms Zone, Abuja, with offices of 3 justices allegedly burnt down. We will bring you more updates as the story continues to unfold. All we can say for now is that this is frightening.
It is very frightening.
Given the circumstances.
Yes, yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your time
Thank
today.
you.